Are you struggling to advance your career and sacrificing time with your loved ones because of endless to-dos, low energy, and just not enough time in the day? If so, then this podcast is for you. I am your host, Dr. Tsung, an ER, critical care, and space doctor, a peak performance coach, real estate investor, and a mother of a toddler. I'm here to guide you on mastering your mind and give you the essential skills to achieve peak performance. So welcome to Productivity MD, where you can learn to master your time and achieve the 5 freedoms in life. Hello, welcome to Productivity MD, and I'm your show host, Dr. Tsung. Today, we're going to be doing about a flow series and how to get into flow states easier and how to sustain it. But today, what we're going to be talking about is number 1, some habits of waking up and getting to flow right away, figuring out and having the reboot routine, figuring out your chronotype, and also we'll be discussing chrononutrition. With the end goal is to essentially sustain the number of flow cycles you can have throughout the day so you can get what you need to do faster in a shorter period of time and 10x your productivity in the day. So let's go ahead and dive in. A lot of us have a morning routine of some sort. We wake up, we start getting ready, etc. Some people may have an excessive morning routine where we journal, meditate, etc., work out, and then later on, we dive into work. And then there's the other extreme, the billionaire, where, let's say a billionaire example, they just dive into work all day, and there's no recovery whatsoever. No yoga, no working out, lifting weights, no walks, no cold showers, etc. So those are really 2 extremes that we want to avoid. We want to be in the middle ground where we can get up, get into flow states, and then we also have what they call a reboot routine. And I want to attribute a lot of things I will be teaching as well is from the Flow Research Collective by Steve Kotler and Rian Doris, the CEO. They've written a lot of books on flow research, and through this performance neuroscience coaching certification I have, this is everything that I've learned, and I'm just sharing it with you guys, okay? So the habit that you would like to build is that you want to wake up and flow. And the reason for that is that, right when you wake up from sleep, you're kind of like in delta theta wave state, a slower state, right? And then your flow state, where you can, time disappears, you don't stop thinking about self, no negative self-talk, you're just in the zone and, working on whatever, deep work, right? Writing something, drafting something, a chapter, creating a slideshow, doing some research like reading and analyzing books or research articles, etc. Whatever you have, coding. And so in that zone, your brain waves are alpha and theta waves. So if you wake up within 90 seconds, you literally wake up, urinate, do whatever you need to do, sit down the computer or your desk and get ready to work, you will get into flow state way faster versus if you did all of your other routine, your typical routine, getting ready, etc. First, when you're fully awake, then it takes a little longer time for you to get back into flow state. All right. So what that means is that the night before, you will have a power down or shutdown routine. You will have your assets ready to go, open up, ready to go. Whatever you need the next morning, you would have planned already. Priority 1, 2, 3. But you would have taken the first micro step that you needed for priority 1 so that you can wake up and just dive right in within 90 seconds of waking up, optimally, right? Give them maybe like 5 minutes, it's okay. But you essentially want to stay in that half asleep state almost. You get in the zone and then you'll just enter into flow easier. So I've tried this where I've woken up and just gotten into flow, like sat down the desk, urinated, cold shower, just because I want to get that over with 2 minutes, and then sat down the desk, ready to go. And I could do multiple flow cycles throughout the day like this. And I would actually get ready, put on my makeup, and then the kids are awake, etc. after that. So that's kind of like my reboot routine or recovery routine in a way. So let's talk a little bit about the reboot routine or recovery routine, whatever you need. So after a flow cycle, typically 90 minutes to 120 minutes, you do need some sort of recovery. It's part of the flow cycle, right? So you want something that has two components. One is mindfulness, and then one is activating your parasympathetic system, the eat, rest, digest system, so that you can get back into flow state. Flow, break, flow, break. You can get back to the flow state easier, right? Because if you're just trying to work throughout the day, you will burn out eventually. And so this could look like different things for everyone. What's recommended is, if possible, something for mindfulness, because if you can be more in the present moment, and you are going to be less distracted, right? If you can feel like your body's sensation, like interoception as well, you kind of know what you need. You feel like more grounded. So, and also when you are mindful, it decreases your default mode network, the internal chatter, right? That's going on. You want to have some sort of mindfulness practice, some sort of quick, it can be like breath work, deep breathing, tumor breathing, like the Wim Hof. You can think about, I combine it because, again, if you do it serially, it's going to take a long time. So what I do is, number one, there's a few components that's recommended. The cold shower, some sort of mindfulness, foam rolling or yoga. That's kind of like a parasympathetic system activation, some like a little bit more relaxing. Same thing with the breathing, and then some gratitude practice, right? So I combine it because I don't have a lot of time when the kids wake up at 7. So after my first flow block, I would breathe. It was quick inhale, exhale as slow as possible. Theoretic, if I have time, 30 breaths. And then I will hold at the end of the exhale. And you want to do 3 sets. Sometimes I don't have time to do it, 3 sets in a row. But sometimes I would do like a 7:30 when I'm holding the baby and rocking the baby to sleep. And I would do my breathing and I would feel myself calming down and the baby will calm down and go to bed. My 9-month-old right now. So you can put these in throughout your day. And anyway, so I would foam roll, expose my eyes to the sun outside, foam roll, do my breathing, and think about my gratitude, like things I'm grateful for, 3 things I'm grateful for at the same time when I'm really in a crunch. So it doesn't have to take long. This reboot routine, you make it to 5 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour. The point is that you want to wake up first, get into flow, finish your first flow block on deep work, high priority, goal director work. Then you go into the rest of your morning routine to recover, right? So now the next thing I want to talk about is what's called your chronotype. There's 3 chronotypes, right? There's a lark, there's a night owl, and there's a third bird. So a lark typically is kind of the morning type. And I'll show the morning type, night owl is night owl. Third bird is like majority of the people. Usually it's like kind of in the middle where they wake up around 8 a.m. The early bird, maybe they like to wake up around 6. And then the late owl, or the night owl, it's maybe like 10 a.m. So right now, you want to figure out your chronotype right now so that you can align with it, so you can schedule your flow block right during the peak chronotype zone, right? So, and for your peak productivity. When you have no work, no obligations, like if you're just remember that time where you could just do whatever you want to, went to go to sleep where you want to, wake up whenever you want to naturally, with no caffeine, not staying up because of caffeine. Think about what time you naturally go to bed and what time you would naturally want to wake up. And then if you take that midpoint section, right, the middle sleep period, say like to go to bed at 10 p.m. and then you would like to wake up at 6 a.m., right? So your midpoint section is 2 a.m., right? So anytime your midpoint is before 3:30 a.m., you're a lark. And then anytime your midpoint section is after 5:30 a.m., and you're a night owl, and everybody else in between, you're a third bird. So what that means is that, now that you have determined your chronotype, then you have a chronotype, a zone, right? That's when you can get as much done in 1 hour when you're in your chronotype zone versus like the same productivity, right? But if you're in your trough, now you're in chronotype zone in your low energy state and you're trying to work, it'll take you 4 hours. So once you figure that out, your chronotype zone, typically, if you're a lark, where your peak productivity, where you're just getting to flow easier, where you have your peak cortisol, peak serotonin, so you have energy, and then you have relaxation as well, and you're in alpha and theta state easier. So if you're a lark, like early morning, typically 6 to 9 a.m. is your chronotype zone. If you are a third bird, typically 8 to 11 a.m. is your peak chronotype zone. And then if you are a night owl, typically is 4 p.m. and after, right? So maybe till about like 8, maybe sometimes like 9 or so. And so what you want to do now that you know where your chronotype zone is, you want to list out everything that you're doing during that's high leverage goal director work and then match it so that it aligns into that chronotype zone so you can bust out your productivity, 10x it, 20x it, maybe even like 20x it. Who knows if what they're saying, the research is saying that it takes you 25% of the time to complete something in your chronotype zone, then, just imagine if you schedule everything that requires planning, coding, researching, studying, reading, drafting, creating, if you can get that all into that zone, just imagine how much more you can get done throughout the day, right? So you don't have to waste time at night. If you're a lark and you're wasting time at night after the kids go to bed, you're trying to do something, it's way slower. So all the menial tasks like errands, perhaps maybe some meetings, things that don't really advance your goals, they should be in the trough, the low zone, right? The trough. After your peak, then there's the trough. So a lot of us are actually trying to work and be productive in the trough where we, at the end of the day or in the afternoon, unless you're a night owl, of course, when we have a lot of attention residue, when we have more cognitive load, then we're trying to do deep creative work. And so it's just taking us way longer. So look at all the lists of menial tasks, things that don't move the goal, move them out, move them into the trough, and all the high leverage items into the chronotype zone right now. And also with the meetings that you're scheduling, every meeting that you take on, you want to essentially change your habit, right? Change your thought process regarding this meeting. It's not like, do I have time for it? It's more like, do I have the energy for it? Should I put this in my chronotype zone? Is it like a deep working meeting? Or is it a meeting that's like, kind of like FYI type, like for your situational awareness? Sometimes, of course, we don't have a choice and we have to adjust. But if there is a choice in scheduling meetings, if it can go into the trough, if it's not a high stake meeting, then move it to the trough period of your day, right? Okay, so we talked about the chronotypes, selecting what your chronotype is by, figuring out your natural sleep-wake cycle. Then we figured out your peak chronotype period. You have moved all of your high leveraged goal-directed actions into those chronotype period. You moved all the things that don't really matter, that not urgent, not important items, or maybe even urgent but not very important items into the trough. And now I want to talk about chrononutrition, right? There's a difference between ritual meals versus flow meals, right? The more what you eat will be able to determine to either block your flow or improve your flow, extend your flow, right? And so that is the definition of chrononutrition. Your eating and the timing of your eating, everything is essentially to maximize the length and duration of flow states to maximize productivity. And then when I'm talking about productivity, again, this is not all just work. It depends on your why. It could be about something else too. Like, sometimes I want to spend time with my kids. I want to be in flow with my kids too. I want to be in flow with my husband. And I have eaten foods that have put me to sleep. And I didn't have the energy to actually play with them, to hang out with them, to be present with them because I was so tired. So again, when I'm talking about productivity, it's not just work related, okay? So chrononutrition. Now, there's 3 different pillars essentially to it, right? So the more food you eat, potentially your flow could be blocked, right? So one of them is fasting. If you can do time restricted eating, having a shorter period of eating window, that would be fantastic. If you can fast during your flow, like flow before food. If you can fast during your flow blocks, your peak period, your chronotype zone, then that would be fantastic. So you're not thinking about food. Your food is more automated down the line. If you fast, long enough, you're not even hungry. So if you can flow before food, that is really number one. And then what you want to determine too, what you eat, like that's going to advance or block your flow, the types of food, right? Typically, it's whole foods, not very processed, minimal sugar, because once you spike your insulin with a lot of carbohydrates, a lot of sugar, chemicals, etc., then your sugar will drop because of the elevated insulin. And once your sugar drops, then your energy level will plummet. And I know this from my own continuous glucose monitoring, the Dexcom I've had for a few years. I know exactly what types of food will bring down my energy. I know exactly what types of food will have a low glycemic index and will allow me to have a sustained energy. Think about if you don't have a CGM, a continuous glucose monitor, consider getting one. Talk to your primary physician. It's amazing because you have hard data, right? But if you don't, then you can consider doing some sort of elimination diet and then slowly introducing it and figuring out what types of food brought my energy, what types of food have increased my energy, and just do more of that. But usually it is less carbs, less sugar, less processed food, and you reserve that towards like the end of the day. And when I talk about flow meals versus ritual meals, you know, we don't necessarily have to stick to a routine of breakfast, lunch, dinner. Those are ritual meals. And so a lot of times the difference between flow meals is that your nutrition, what you eat, is actually timed and the content is optimized for flow. Ritual meals is like, hanging out, socializing with friends or kids, etc. You're kind of eating maybe more carb heavy. So you can determine if you want to have one ritual meal a day or one ritual meal during the weekends only. And then the rest of the weekdays during your work, it's just all flow meals. Also, another thing you can do is fast, just doing one meal a day, OMAD, one meal a day. And then so you're basically allowed, you can extend your flow zone or flow blocks by doing just one meal a day at dinner. Then you eat all the calories that you need for that one day. Now, regarding the timing of these slow meals, if you can fast, I think that would be the best because I fast during the day during the big morning block. With breastfeeding, I don't have a very long eating window. I mean, I'm sorry, a fasting window. It could be like 16, 18 hours, but now it's maybe like 10 to 12-hour fasting window, maybe sometimes 14. But I have my bulletproof matcha in the morning and then I go into flow. Then you want to eat your flow meal kind of like when you're there's two options: in your peak state, in your peak zone, chronotype zone, then hopefully that peak state can kind of sustain throughout the rest of the day. Because a lot of times we have an energy drop at 3 p.m. And you can also time your flow meal just to right before that trough. Like if it is 3 p.m., kind of like 2:30, so that you don't have that dip in energy. And so you may have to test your timing, test the types of food. But I think this is super important because what you eat will actually determine how many mistakes you make or how much money you're losing, right? Because you're not productive, or just your performance at work in general. So think about the stuff that you're putting in your body. It's not just really for health, but actually it's for financial reasons too, if that's what motivates you. So I know when I work at ER shift, if you're RVU based on how many patients you see or procedure, if I feel crappy, like have food coma, then I definitely cannot move as fast. And if I make mistakes, then that will impact patient care, right? So there's a lot of high stakes for me to actually eat so I have sustained energy. And I see that a lot of night shift workers, so much processed food, so many like cookies in the ER, donuts, whatever. It doesn't really lead to productivity. Anyway, we have covered quite a bit in a short period of time. So I want to summarize again. Number one habit to build is right now on your calendar, pick a time that you are going to wake up and begin flow and say flow before food, right? And not eat if possible. Pick a time, flow, have a set flow time of an hour, maybe an hour and a half or 2 hours. And then you schedule on your calendar a reboot routine, maybe like 20 minutes, it could be 10 minutes. And so that you can take advantage of your chronotype zone and actually get into flow states easier. Number two, we talked about the chronotypes. Number three, we talked about your chronotype zone, right? And chrononutrition, picking and selecting the types of food and timing your food so that you can extend your flow state, extend your productivity. And if you can fast, that would really be best. Or when we talk about time restricted eating, maybe fasting has a negative connotation. It's more like having a eating period window that you're going to stick to. So also, if you can stop eating, if you want to pick your window, if you can stop eating optimally 4 hours before you go to bed, you might find that you can extend your deep sleep longer. So I used to do 2, 3 hours before bed. I would stop eating and I moved it to about 3 to 4 hours before bed. And I saw my deep sleep increase in duration by 30 minutes. So it used to be an hour and a half, an hour, 20 minutes. And now it's close to 2 hours of deep sleep if I can stop eating 3 to 4 hours before bed. So just think about that. Take some action. If there's one action right now you can take, what is it? Because there's no point in listening to this, right? And if you don't take action, then there's really no point. Then I want you to take one micro step after this. And so try things out and see how it goes. All right. Reach out to me. This episode is going to be on Productivity MD. All of the resources I've talked about will be in the show notes, of course. Reach out to me. You can find me on Instagram and Tsung MD or Facebook. And if you guys are interested, if this, speaks to you, you want to increase your productivity, then go on productivitymd.com. You can book a one-on-one coaching qualification call with me just to see if you're the right fit for this 1 year one-on-one coaching so you can actually supercharge your productivity. Anyway, so thank you again for your kind presence and attention. And just remember that everything we need is within us now. Thank you.
Disclaimer: this content is for general information purposes only and does not constitute the practice of medicine. No doctor-patient relationship is formed. The use of this information linked to this content is at the user's own risk. The content is not intended to be a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Users should not disregard or delay in obtaining medical advice for any medical conditions they may have and should seek the assistance of their healthcare professionals for any such conditions. The views are personal views only and do not represent any university or government institution.